Hello?
Hi, is this Timmy Cappello?
Yes, it is.
Hi, it's Michael Bart or DJ Barticus, and I'm joined by my co-DJ, the Lizzard.
Hi, it's so nice to hear from you.
Oh, hi. How you guys doing?
Really great.
Yeah, we're doing
All
great
right.
here.
I'm so excited about our gigs together.
Me too. The whole town, of Athens, Ohio's super pumped to have you there, and you just know we're gonna have like a really great time.
That's so nice to hear.
I was watching videos on you and reading your bio, and I found it really interesting that you were getting your start studying with Lennie Tristano. I never heard his music until now. Then I was spent a lot of time this week listening to his recordings. What did you learn from him about being a musician and performing?
I learned that it's not about notes on a page. It's not about how fast you can play, even though he obviously had incredible chops. His facility was always in the service of his heart. And I don't have nearly his facility on my instrument because I don't play complicated music like he did. But if you listen to him, he's always playing a melody. Sometimes it can go by pretty quick, but he's always singing you a song. He's always playing you a melody from his heart. He's hearing something in his head, and he's just putting it right out there. He's got chops. He doesn't always feel he has to use them all the time. That's what really Lennie taught me. And also to be yourself. We would play together every week. And if he liked something I played, he would say, you know what? That's a really nice little riff. You should learn that. You want to develop a lexicon of your own. So why don't you play that like in all the keys and all the notes of the scale, starting on 1, starting on 2, starting on 3. Why don't you do that? Or just go home and make up something. He wanted you to be yourself. When he was playing in the late 40s and 50s, everybody was copying Charlie Parker. Charlie Parker loved Lennie, and they made a couple of records together because he said, you're the only person that's not copying me, and I really appreciate that.
I've noticed that with any kind of art, that the hardest thing is to have a unique signature and just to be completely yourself. If you're talking about a painter or a sculptor or anything, and so that's just really impressive. And I think that's such an important point.
Some people really have it just naturally, like they don't have a choice. That's why I'm not a big fan of things like The Voice or American Idol, or where they make it a competition of who is better, because it's all most themselves. If you want to take it to its extreme, you would listen to something I've been listening to lately because I'm a fan of Roger Troutman, the keyboard player from
Zap.
And of course he did California Love. And California Love, I'm not sure if it's just a sample because it's in a different key, so they might have just re-recorded it, but it's Woman to Woman by Joe Cocker. Just listen to Joe Cocker. He has absolutely zero chop or control over his own voice. And yet he gives me, on Woman to Woman especially, where it's half of it is in falsetto, when he makes a mistake, it's almost better. Like when Ray Charles sometimes sings a little sharp. I don't think it's on purpose, but it also gives me goosebumps because he's just so himself that sometimes the unintentional, you're singing a little sharp, you're singing a little flat, you're playing a phrase that you didn't quite mean to play, it just sort of came out. And those times are they're spooky and they're wonderful. So the idea of music as sport, or, someone is 23% better than the other player or singer, it bothers me a little bit. It seems like it should be, whether somebody's like Lennie or like Art Tatum, who had tremendous, or Lester Young, who had tremendous chops. But Lennie, you could just tell. You could hear him. You could hear him not knowing what he's going to do next. I also, when my father died very young, and he had a big record collection that went around the whole playroom, on a shelf. And so when he died, I went through everything, and I saw this record, and the picture was intriguing to me. So I picked it up and put it on, and I put on Lennie Tristano's Turkish Mambo, which is where, Les Paul was the first to do overdubs. He did overdubs, and each was in a different time signature. And so these layers are intersecting at different places. This is 1954. And then he improvises over it. And it just blew my mind. Like I was 11 or 10, and I instantly knew what he was doing. And I just said, that is the coolest. I didn't know that music could be that. And so then when Trout Mask Replica came out, that's what he did too. Every part is in a different key. Every part is in a different time signature. And they're all intersecting at different levels. And, of course, it was even more radical than Lennie's. That really blew my mind, too. So those are two of my heroes, is Captain Beefheart and Lennie Tristano.
That's awesome. I love that you brought up Beefheart because I remember you mentioning him in another interview. And I've heard about that specific album that, even though it sounds very chaotic, like they were just making stuff up, everything was completely rehearsed, and they only took about 3 hours to record all 4 sides of that album. They just went in the studio and had that perfectly planned out and just hit record.
Yes, they did a double record in 1 3-hour session because they were rehearsing 12 and 13 hours a day. So they knew everything. Everything was one take. If there was a second take, it was really rare. I like the Grow Fins box set because it gives you a lot of the, even though I love Beefheart's poetry, the music is so important to me that when they take his vocals out and you get to hear what's really going on without the lyrics, I try to dig in there and see what's making it tick. There's 2 records that Beefheart made like that. One was Trout Mask Replica, and the other was called Lick My Decals Off. If you want to see something really cool, Lick My Decals Off, they made a commercial for it. And it wasn't blue or sexual at all. But it was so weird that people called up. And this was at 2 o'clock in the morning. Who's up? Drunks, right? So they made him take it off. And it's part of the collection at the Museum of Modern Art. Check it out on YouTube. Lick My Decals Off, the 1-minute commercial for it. I'm a huge Beefheart. But only those 2 records. They were so hard to do. They took so much time and effort that they just couldn't do it anymore. You know what I mean? Beefheart couldn't write all those parts out. They couldn't be giving them to people. They couldn't be rehearsing. You can only do so much. And they did manage to make those 2 records, and in some ways, Lick My Decals Off is a better record, because they had the other one behind them. But they're both fantastic. For what it's worth, there's a lot of people that I love for totally different reasons, obviously Tom Waits and Joe Henderson as just, a straight-ahead post-bop tenor saxophone player. As a matter of fact, my record, Blood on the Reed, I didn't even remember. I loved his record, The Kicker, so much that I didn't remember. It was just so much a part of my heart that I didn't remember that I stole the cover from him. If you look at my record, Blood on the Reed, and then you look at The Kicker, you realize I just stole the whole thing from him. It was like at the end of Tina's song from Mad Max, One of the Living, I play a really long solo on it, and the last phrase, without knowing it, is a pure steal from Junior Walker on the Foreigner tune.
I'm trying to Google for you. Urgent?
Yeah. Urgent. Thank you. So I stole his last phrase without knowing it. Some things you just love so much that they just become a part of you. Have you ever done that? Have you ever lifted another DJ's mixes or just something and you go, where am I getting this from? Or usually I don't know till way after, till I've heard it back and I went, something's not right about this. I think I stole something from somebody.
Oh, I'm 100% sure. I definitely borrow from a lot of people without even
Have you
realizing it.
done that? But do you do it consciously, or is it just in your chest?
Probably a little of both. Usually not intentionally, but if there's like, a DJ mix that's really inspired me and I've listened to it over and over, then in your head you're going to
Sure.
think these two songs go together, and then when I put those songs together, I am, unconsciously copying or consciously.
Sure, and you'll make it your own. You know, it's not exactly the same. You will make it your own, but I felt really embarrassed by both of those things. And I don't know if you ever feel embarrassed or you just feel like, oh, that person's going to know that I really love them. And I might even go up to them if they're a peer and say, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do this.
Yeah, I'm of the philosophy that being original isn't that important for copyright reasons and making money off of songwriting. It is, but
Yes.
I think like music, we're always borrowing and stealing and building from each other. So I don't value
That's
originality that
interesting.
much.
That's really interesting. I wonder if that's a generational thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because now there's so much, right? And DJing is such a different thing. You're picking little pieces from here and there, and so it's just part of your gig.
I was listening to the Netflix special, and you were talking about the energy you get from a crowd and that you give back to the crowd, and especially relating to this tour you're on now, playing a lot of bars that have a couple hundred people in them. Just what's your philosophy on performance and the exchange of energy? I don't know if that's a really bad question, but I think you know what I'm
Well,
asking.
no, I mean, 20, I spent 40 years as a second banana. You know what I mean? I started at 19 or 20, let's call it, and never played a gig of mine till I was in my 60s. Like I didn't make Blood on the Reed till I was in my mid 60s. So this is my first chance to feel it. I certainly would rather have, like recently, I saw this really beautiful club. They had lasers, they had all these enormous Times Square size, gorgeous LCD screens. And yet I could see that it was probably a busy night. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put it up as a video. And it was just so big. That's too much of a heavy lift for me. I do it sometimes if I get caught. But if I have a chance to play, my sweet spot is 150 to 200 people. And I don't care if I could have made more money or, I could have gone for 300 or 400 people if it was Portland or something like that where I can draw, like Portland, Seattle. There's a place I'm going to play up in Worcester near Boston that it's sold out in an hour. And I don't know, when I finish the first song and the reaction literally knocks me back a little bit, like I literally take a step back, that's just the best feeling. That's just the best feeling besides the music itself that you can get on stage to have people. And when they're sort of interested in yelling out things when I'm telling my little stories, because it's a one-man sort of multimedia thing. So I like to tell a lot of stories because I've had so many crazy things happen to me on stage or on film sets or stuff like that, that I like to tell little stories in between songs. And when people yell out stuff and that lets me know that they're there with me. It's a strange career that I'm 67 years old and I feel like I'm just starting out. So as long as my lip holds out and my larynx holds out and my hips hold out, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm just going to keep doing it because I've never had such a great feeling. I can play any notes that I want. I can choose any songs that I want. In my time away, when I quit Tina's band and up to when I started doing these gigs and conventions and stuff, I played in and led a lot of wedding bands in a tuxedo. And just the thought of playing Uptown Funk one more time just had me, I really developed like an anxiety condition, and just the fact that you're forced to have this tight playlist, and you just have to do it. You have to play certain Motown songs every time till there are these songs that are really good songs that you just hate with every fiber of your being. You know, you ever do that? I mean, do you ever get trapped in a place where they give you a tight playlist?
I think me and DJ Barticus both know how that goes working at a radio station.
Yeah, maybe the radio
Yeah.
station that is our day job that this interview will air on puts us in those positions occasionally.
Oh, I see.
It's really also inspiring what you're saying, because I found the same thing, that as an audience member or as a DJ on a stage, that, you know, that 150 is kind of the perfect number of an audience, and any bigger than that, there's like a little bit too much distance between the audience and the performer.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's packed, it feels like a heavy lift because you got to reach those people in the back. When you're at 100, to me, 150 to 200, 200 tops. When you're up to 300 and 400, even if it's packed, it's just, for me, and you know, like you too, right? It's like, because you know, when you get that crowd and the room starts to lift, that's what you're going for. You never really quite know when it's going to happen, but it's what you're always searching for. You want that room to just lift up, and you want people to forget themselves. You know what I mean? You see those big, ugly smiles that, you know, people, if they knew how they looked, they wouldn't be smiling like that. That, to me, is just the most beautiful thing in the world. You know, I just see people smiling in a way that they would never smile if they were posing for a picture or they were hanging around their friends. They've just lost themselves, and the room starts to lift, and people start to make these really ugly faces, and it's just the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen. And, you know, I'm sure you guys have experienced the same thing over and over again, too, where everybody just starts taking off.
Yes.
You found the right combination on the right night. You went with your instincts. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes it does. And when it does, it's just crazy. And I'm sure you've seen these nutsy faces people make that, you know, they've just lost themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And you just go like, this is what my art is all about. I did take traditional African music, and they never play without dancing, and they never dance without singing. So those three are always together. It gives it a purpose. It actually just has a human purpose. It's not a bunch of people sitting around listening to 12-tone music that they really can't quite figure out, sitting in some stuffy auditorium. Which, you know, I'm a fan of progressive music. I'm in there, I'm listening. It's not the same thing. My body's not moving. But I have ears, and sometimes I'm in that mood. You know, I like progressive jazz. Some of Joe Henderson's things are pretty progressive. Obviously, John Coltrane. Lennie was very progressive. As a matter of fact, he's the first person in 1948 that invented free jazz. He made the first recordings of free jazz. Now, they weren't that crazy kind of stuff that you get with Albert Ayler or some people in the 60s, Coltrane. You know, they were pretty, but they were just improvising and listening to each other, and that's what free jazz is. So I love those records. They don't make me dance. In general, jazz can get me sometimes. When it's grooving, when Elvin is on the drums or Tony Williams or somebody, it doesn't make me dance, but I'm really feeling it. I'm really feeling that rhythm really strongly, right? And I'm sure it's the same with you guys. It just has to be. That's why we do it. You know, we wouldn't do it for the money.
No, clearly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you'd still be playing Uptown Funk.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I made a lot of money doing that, being the band leader. And yet that playlist, Sugar Pie, Honey Bunch, oh my God.
I grew up on Lost Boys, so this is overwhelmingly surreal. I'm very excited. And I was just wondering, I know you didn't start with the saxophone, and it seems like you've kind of made your way through a maze of instruments. And do you have any advice for people maybe too scared to pick up an instrument at a certain point in their life, especially if it's like to get over something else or maybe just starting something new? I feel like a lot of people are very hesitant to take that step.
Oh, yeah, do you think so?
Oh, absolutely.
I never thought about it that way. But if there are people like that, and they actually have a desire, like when they listen to the radio, they really focus on the drums, or they hear like the bass laying down this great fat groove, and they just go like, what is that? You got to do it. You got to do it. And my other advice is only play songs you like. Don't let anybody teach you things that you don't like to play. If you have to teach yourself, teach yourself. But if you love the piano, if you love classical music, please study it. But if you don't like it, play the songs that you love right from the start.
Yeah.
Make it something that you love to do. I was sawing away on the cello for like 5-6 years before my father passed, and I felt permission to put it down. And it was torture. It was torture. Because I'm not a classical music fan. I'm just not. There's no beat to it. If there's something that really I dislike, it's something like ba-da-dum, 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 bum, ba-da-dum, 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 bum. It's so corny to me, and that's Mozart, I think. It bothers me because there's no syncopation, there's no rhythm. But do exactly what you love. Don't let your mother or your father put you in touch with somebody that doesn't know how to play the music that you love. And if you have to start on piano and then move over to the drums or the other way around, don't worry about it. You could be somebody like me who gets a lot of work because they know how to play a lot of instruments.
Mm-hmm.
I knew how to play the piano. I knew how to play the harmonica. I knew how to play the guitar. I knew how to play, the wind synth. I knew how to play a lot of different instruments. And it wound up being great because Tina needed a piano player and she also needed a saxophone player. And a friend of mine said, geez, I know a guy that does both. Maybe you want to hire him. You could save some money. So they always want to save money. So don't worry about going from instrument to instrument until you find the one that really feels great in your hands.
Everybody wants a jack of all trades.
Yeah, why not?
Right.
Why not take a little time to find out what it is? If somebody needs an accordion, you're so used to playing things, they might send it to you. There's a guy I know that was in Pat Metheny's band, and they needed an accordion. He'd never played accordion before, but he was one of the singers, and he played a lot of instruments, so they just sent him an accordion, and he learned how to play that song on accordion.
Yeah.
And so there are these utility players like myself, and it was really fun because you'd be like, okay, I got 6 bars on the keyboards, then I got to make my way over to the drums, then I got to play the congas for the chorus, then I got to flip around and get that saxophone ready for the solo. It was really quite fun.
Very impressive, too. I know that somebody else besides myself and DJ Barticus here will find that answer really inspirational, so thank you so much for that.
And also, if you can at all, put singing in the mix so you can be somebody that sings backgrounds. You don't have to go to a singing teacher, but read some singing books about pop music singing. Don't worry too much about doing everything they say to do, but just do some of the exercises that they recommend so that you can learn to sing in tune and maybe increase your range a little bit. I vocalize every day. You got to keep that in the mix because sometime you may want to get a gig and they're going to say, can you sing? And you can say yes.
Right.
Just backgrounds, just oohs and ahs.
We could talk for hours and hours about this. I don't want to take all of your time, but
I'd love to talk
it's
for
very
hours
inspiring.
and hours.
Because I've been trying to
I'd
sing
love
myself.
to talk for hours and hours.
Okay.
Let's keep it going. It's going to be fun because we're going to do lots of gigs together. I can feel it.
I hope so.
You know what I mean? We're going to be a team.
Second half of the interview. 1, 2, 3. Yup, we got it now. I'm excited. I'm generally working 3 to 4 days a week. I'm very happy. I don't think I'm ever quite as fulfilled musically as when I'm doing my own thing and we're in a nice place that's not too big so that you can really lift the place and people really get into it and they're close to you and It's like before COVID, right? We're all sort of spitting on each other and banging into each other. And when you and I go out, DJ Barticus,
Yes.
we're going to have a ball.
I can't wait. I'm super excited. Any future things that we can do together, I'm more than game for it.
Cool, baby. I really am too.
On the road right now, you're your own road manager, your own driver, your own equipment tech.
Booking my
you do
own
it all.
hotels, doing it. You know what? If I had to have a roadie in the car with me all the time, I think it would make me uncomfortable. I'm kind of a private person, so my wife is the only person that makes me really comfortable to be with. When she comes out like she did last week, we went to Memphis and we went to the Peabody Hotel and saw the Duck. We went to Beale Street and saw all the magic potions. We're way off music.
I don't think we're way off your story, though, because we've both been talking and reading a lot about you, and we both wanted to ask about your history. As Liz was saying, we have a lot of problems in our area of Southeast Ohio, and one of them is the opioid epidemic. Really.
Wow.
It's incredibly, incredibly bad. I don't know if it's just Ohio or Athens County right now. The opioid crisis has hit us incredibly hard.
Is the opioid crisis like a legal one, or is it still heroin and fentanyl?
It's a lot of fentanyl around here, but you also do see a lot of heroin usage. And, you know, I have friends that have juggled living in heroin and careers and even musicians. So how has that been for you? And if you're open about it, could you tell us a little bit of your story about stopping your addiction?
Sure. It's a little hard to tell the whole story, but I think it's important to be truthful about it. And that is that I had a bad heroin problem in my early 20s. It just seemed like all of a sudden, you know, when I was maybe 21 and started going on the road, it was all about cocaine. And I couldn't stand cocaine because I'm a kind of a hyper person. I just have my eyes wide open all night long and then have to get on a plane or a bus or something. But then it changed, and there was this big shipment for a couple of years of incredibly pure heroin from Thailand. And the first time I took it, I said, okay, this is it. I would destroy my life for this. I was really bad with it a year and a half maybe. And then my 25th birthday, because of the heroin, I hadn't seen my family in that whole time. Even though we all lived in Manhattan and were only a few blocks from each other. I didn't want anybody to see me. I've known people that have been heroin addicts, and they look exactly the same. Their face doesn't get twisted, their eyes don't get messed up, they just look exactly the same, but not me. So I was always embarrassed of the way I looked. It was my birthday, they forced me, come on, we haven't seen you in so long, come down. So I put pancake makeup all over, you know, I had pimples all over my face, and I went down to my mother's house, and my two sisters and my niece and my mother were there, and my niece came in, and I opened the door, and she screamed. She just started screaming, and she locked herself in the bathroom, and obviously it didn't make me feel too good. And my mother, she was trying to be nice and not make a big thing out of it on my birthday. So she came up to my house, and I had these old metal windows, and I was on a high floor right on the Hudson River, but it was an old sort of dilapidated hotel. And I was in one room, and my mother was in the other room, and I was, you know, trying to go to sleep, and I heard in the other room my mother trying desperately to stifle her sobbing. So I'd hear these little, and that noise went through me. It was the softness of it, the tininess of it, just the fact that she was trying to keep it from me. That really meant how sincere and how really worried about me she was. It was like a lightning bolt. I just said, okay, if this is what this is really at, if this is what I'm doing to my family, I'm never doing this again. The next day, I don't know if you've ever seen me playing with Peter Gabriel, but how skinny I was when I first started bodybuilding. Maybe I'm 6 foot tall. I was maybe 130 pounds. The day I went to the top of this plumbing supply store and joined the gym and just happened to get in with a great bunch of guys who took me under their wing. And, you know, it hasn't really been that easy because about, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I was doing work that I hated. I was leading wedding bands. I felt like nobody remembered me. Nobody gave a shit. I never heard from anybody to do a convention or a gig or play on anybody's album or anything like that. And so I was leading these wedding bands in a tuxedo, 2 or 3 every weekend. And I developed a really severe anxiety disorder, these anxiety attacks that were so intense that I was really thinking of doing myself in. Besides going to a psychiatrist and getting on anti-anxiety medications, which did help, I also then sort of lapsed. I started taking an herb called kratom. Have either of you ever heard of it?
Yeah, we have some shops around here that sell it, and I've seen some people spiral off on that as well.
Yeah, I kind of spiraled off on it a couple times pretty recently. There was one time when I was just taking so much kratom and drinking so much that I really thought it was over for me. So I went to rehab, and I was good for a while. And then I started getting anxiety attacks again, and I had a psychiatrist who wouldn't give me the proper dose of my medication. And I was back at that horrible place where I was really considering bad things. I changed psychiatrists and got somebody to give me the proper amount of medication. And my wife has been awfully helpful and a real guide to getting off. So I've been off of everything except my prescribed medications, which I try to take as little as possible. So it's not just something that's ancient history. It's like what happens to me, and I don't know if you guys know anybody like this, you probably do, that I say to myself, well, can't I just get high like 2 times a week or once every 3rd day or, and I'd really say, because it was uncomfortable. My life was just sort of uncomfortable. It wasn't going to kill me, but it was not fun. I was sort of shaking and having generalized anxiety condition. And for no reason, just like a toothache. And all of a sudden, I had this great idea. It helped me once. Maybe it'll help me again. Because I'm kind of, by nature, skinny, I can't really overwork. Like, I can't go to the gym like every day. I'll get skinny again. I can overwork easily. So I would just go to the gym 3 times a week. But I said, you know what? I could really do some really super intense cardio on the days that I'm not training hard, that I'm not lifting weights. And man, it just helped me again. I don't have any anxiety anymore. I go in for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and I kick it as hard as I can. And then when I'm done, I'm walking so slow. I am so chill. It's like magic. It's like I'm actually getting a little misty because I don't know where the thought came into my mind. Like, it worked for you once. Maybe you can try it again. So now it's going to be a test while I'm on the road. While we're talking, I'm thinking to myself, oh, yeah, after we get off, I'm going to try to find a Planet Fitness and go on my day off lifting and try to put in 30 minutes of really, really intense cardio. So I would say to anybody that has a problem like that, that's the only thing that's ever helped me. Because it feels physical. It's like a toothache, like I said. It doesn't feel mental. Like my anxiety is not worry. My anxiety is like a lightning bolt down through the top of my head, through my spine, and then it just goes everywhere into my body until my hands are shaking and all that stuff. and the kratom would work, but it would also make me shake and feel like I wasn't in control of my legs or stuff like that. It had a lot of bad side effects. It is fake opiate.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind. It's not the same alkaloids, but they are extremely similar. And I tell you what, I've had to come off of kratom a few times, and it is a bitch.
Yeah.
It's almost as bad as trying to get off heroin.
Well,
Like, it hurts. It really hurts.
a lot of your story really resonated with me, and I'm so happy to hear that you are where you are right now. I think it takes a lot of strength and inspiration through art, and especially other people. Do you ever feel pressured, I guess, on the road? I think there's a lifestyle that comes with doing traveling shows. Is that ever hard for
Oh,
you?
God. You know, we're going to find out. I don't know. The only thing I can say is I'm going to try to keep my body, like, in a chill spot by really working out hard, like 6 days a week. You know, even on show days, even on travel days, it's extremely, extremely important. That, eating correctly, practicing every day, practicing the sax, practicing the voice, all those things. Can I do it? Man, I really hope I can. But you know what I mean? She's not around to help me. I mean, I can talk to her. We can, you know, look at each other over the phone, and I can say, oh, boy, I'm really feeling lonely, or I'm really feeling like getting drunk, or taking, you know, there's a place right across the street that's a vape shop that sells kratom by myself. I hope I can do it because I love this. I love this. It's the best job I've ever had. It's hard work. But on the other hand, I think hard work of any kind, keeping your mind occupied, is really good for anxiety. I don't think it's that good for depression. I don't know. I don't have depression. But, you know, that feeling that people just think, oh, what's it worth? Or why should I get out of bed? Or anything like that. I've never had anything like that. I've always been a hyperactive, anxious person. It just runs in the family. And, you know, like I said, I can just get high like once every third day or once every fourth day. And by the time 2 or 3 days have rolled along, I'm doing it 5 times a day. And I'm drinking, you know, once every 2 hours. I'm having 12 ounces of hard liquor. It's really tough. I think I can do it. I've always felt, I mean, let's face it, I've been on the road. I started when I was 19. I'm 67, 45 years. And I've always looked at being on the road as war. You can't slip. Was it the David Bowie movie where, like, the guy said, like, you shave every day? If you don't shave for 1 day, you're fucked. If you miss the smallest detail that you should have done and didn't do, it's a pretty slippery drop. So I don't know. I mean, I'm always interested in what people's relationship to these substances is. You know what I mean? Kratom's totally legal. You know, like, you can drive on it. You won't get arrested. And I used to also take something called kava, which is a similar substance. Have either of you had something like that, or know somebody that's struggling with stuff like that? Like you said, where you live, have any of the people, because I've lost a few people over the years, and I just lost a good friend of mine's son who was only 19. And the poor kid, he had been to prison a few times already, and I didn't know what to say at the funeral, and I apologized for offering the idea that maybe if he took kratom, it wouldn't quite be as bad as taking heroin and fentanyl. And so I said, I'm so sorry. He was dead. He didn't even shoot it. That's how crazy fentanyl is, right?
Yeah.
Like micrograms can kill you. That's how bad it is. Are people around you dropping?
Yeah, and I think Athens is probably all of Ohio. It's I mean, fentanyl is, I think, the #1 killer in the United States right now.
Really?
We both know quite a few people in the past year who have young people who have died from not shooting it. It's just you never know what it's in, and the littlest bit will just get you.
Just gets you dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what he said. He said, first of all, about the kratom, you probably gave me 6 more months with my son because he kind of took to it and it wasn't as bad. He wasn't breaking the law. And then, just like you said, he snorted it. He didn't even shoot it. He was a guy who had a high tolerance, and he just snorted it. It was like a little, he was just doing something that he thought was really pretty innocent, and he just wound up dead right away. So you know people like that too.
Yeah,
that they just snort the littlest, tiniest bit.
Yeah, we both do.
Yeah.
It's pretty prolific here.
I don't know. I've had so many discussions with my wife about this. It's like there is nothing to life but feeling. You know what I mean? I guess if money makes you feel good, then it's not the money, it's the feeling. If you have a wonderful relationship, it's the feeling. And if being a prick makes you feel good, being a badass that likes to get into fights makes you feel good, then it's that feeling. So, you know, some people just don't feel that good just as they walk through their life. Does that make any sense at all?
Absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense.
Whether it's genetic, you know, whether it's physical, whether it's the way you were treated when you were a child, whether it's a combination of those things, some people don't really feel that great just walking around. I mean, to me, I don't really blame myself. If you don't feel good just breathing, you got to find something. Meditation makes me feel worse. Meditation makes me feel 10 times worse. I actually got to a point where I just was sure that meditation was the best thing, that that's what you were supposed to do if you were an anxious person. And it made me feel so much worse. And I was getting to the point where, oh, just keep doing it more, keep doing it more. I was getting to the point where I was doing it like 2 hours a day. And I was just about to kill myself. It was so bad. Because it puts you in touch with your bad feelings. You know, puts you in touch with your feelings, whether they're good or they're bad. And it just put me so much in touch with my bad feelings. That's why really, really kicking shit, either lifting weights or cardio or whatever it is, it's just the thing. It changes the way I feel. It gets all that adrenaline out of my body and makes me feel better. So, you know what? I have a lot of optimism at the moment. It hasn't really been that long that I've been totally straight. All I can say is wish me luck, you know?
Yeah. People don't understand that it's not something that you just kick. It doesn't go away. You live with it forever. You overcome it every day. Thank you for being so open about it. You have a really amazing way of talking about it.
Well, you know, I'd love to put it all behind me and just talk about the heroin. But just like you said, it's never going to go away. You know what I mean? Those things at 21 that made me get into it, the opiates, is the same exact stuff. It's the same exact feeling that has me fighting this. So, you know, you're right. You never really kick it. Although, as I said, I'm very, very optimistic. I was like, yeah, really, when I was 25, it really changed my life. Lifting weights really changed my life. All of a sudden, I just kicked so quickly. As a matter of fact, I kicked heroin and stopped smoking at the same time, and the smoking was harder.
Wow.
I'd love to just put it in the past and be like a cool dude who's able to kick it, but it's a daily thing.
I think you being honest and open is going to be really helpful for anyone that gets to listen to this interview, because the way that it's written about, when I read articles about you, is it was something that you miraculously overcame with weightlifting, and it's in the past, but it's probably a lot better to tell the honest story that it's an ongoing fight, an ongoing struggle.
Yeah, I mean, it was a time not too long ago, a few years ago, where it's not really legal, but it's done all the time, where people just buy boxes of opium poppies. It's just the dried poppy. and you grind them up. You take the seeds out, you grind them up, you down it with some juice or whatever. And so I did that for a little while. That was a few years ago. And my tolerance went up so quickly, just like with booze. My tolerance went up so quickly that no amount of, I could spend hundreds of dollars in a day, and no amount would do the thing that it did in the beginning. So that's the bitch, that's really the hard part. I feel so bad for people who are still kind of hanging on to the fact that substances are gonna stay where they are. You know what I mean? They'll work all week and they'll get drunk on the weekends, or they can sort of half do it and then it'll be okay. That'll last for a little while and then you're screwed again. At least me. So I didn't really have a choice. I mean, I literally just like clockwork. Every 2 hours I'd have to take like 8 ounces of booze. That's so bad. It just happens like that. Some people seem to be able to handle it. It's just such a part of life. If you look at it like Dionysus, if you look at it that way, it's a god, right? Getting bombed is a god. It really is a part of life.
We are both very excited to meet you, and beyond it being a university town, there's so much cool history and beauty and art and music scene.
Oh, really?
We'll show you all around. We're so excited.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. That's really nice of you. And of course, we've got a few gigs together. And Bart, I just wanted to let you know I'm getting emails, I'm getting texts, I'm getting Facebook posts of just saying great things about you, and that, I see you're working with Bart. This is fantastic. You'll have a ball. So that's pretty great. You obviously do your job. You make connections. You know how to lift up the room, and do your job really artistically. And also, obviously, have a lot of sincere affection. So I just want to let you know that I'm getting so many, oh, wow, I see you're working with DJ Barticus. Wow, that is so cool. Well, somebody should have thought of this a long time ago. This is a great match.
It's making me feel so good. I can't wait either. Yeah, like you say, it is the best job you could have, just entertaining a room of people. And it's funny you said connect, because I was thinking about connections too. Also, I've noticed a lot when you talk about performing for a room of people, you use the word lift a lot. Is there a reason why there's the same word there when you're like lifting weights or lifting up a room?
Much better. It's much better. It's much better. The other way is just a way to get myself tired and chill. It really makes me feel great. Like I can grab a book or I can watch TV, see a movie, and I'm not shaking. I'm feeling pretty chilled. But, man, as both of you know, when you see those smiles, man, and you finish a good set and people just blow you back with their reaction, that's just beyond. I don't know if it's my insecurity, so feeling loved and appreciated just gets me so excited and makes me feel so good. It's way above. Because you think to yourself, wow, I made this music, and this really isn't the music that people are generally into, but they're digging it, and I'm telling stupid stories about my crazy career and life, and they're digging that, and they're shouting stuff up at me, and you're just getting into a whole thing, It's like I was just telling you about. There's that certain smile when you know somebody doesn't know they're smiling. It's just really, really big and wide and ugly. I mean that in the nicest way. That they've lost it. They've lost their connection to how they look or how they're coming across. They're lifted, right?
One thing I've noticed about crowds that are going out since the pandemic, one thing in my 80s dance parties I used to love is just seeing people of all ages, like people in their 60s and older would be coming out. And sadly, since 2020, I haven't really seen many people, 50, 60 anymore.
You think they're still scared?
Either they're still scared or they didn't make it. So I was just wondering if you've seen a similar thing in your crowds, if the oldest part of the crowd is just staying home and just not going out anymore.
I have not seen that, but I'll take a look because I'm just starting. So I was at Joe Bob's, right? You know Joe Bob Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole thing, there were so many old people, young people. Really, tomorrow is going to be my first I'm going to have to see. Although I do have to say, maybe something that might be a little different. I think my fans, well, like you're saying, have always been younger. I don't really get too many people my own age. I get people who would have been my child's age or my grandchildren's age. So you guys have anything else that you'd like to add about?
There's so much I would like to know about. I'm a little curious about the Peter Gabriel and the Billy Crystal years.
The Billy Crystal thing really started when I was 19. That was like my second actual professional gig. The other guy was sort of a James Taylor type of mellow kind of guy, or, you know, mid-70s, that sound. And then I was playing with him, and then Billy was maybe 25 at that point, and he just said, "Oh, who's a piano player?" I said, "Me." And he said, "Would you be okay if you came up and just played a little bit with me?" And I said, "Sure." And it worked out great. He would just get into talking about something, and I would just start playing music that had something to do with it, and then that would change it. It was really fun. It was a lot of, well, it was pretty much totally improvisation. It wasn't like he would, you know, yell to the audience, "Oh, give us the subject," or anything like that. It wasn't that. He would do something, and then he would say a different word each night, and then that would make me go somewhere else, and then he would just take that and run with it. Also, the thing I remember is, you know, we were young and neither of us had very much money. So he would have to rent a car, and it was just the two of us going up from New York City to Niagara Falls, or just the two of us together laughing our asses off. It's just so much fun. He's two things. He's extremely, extremely smart, and obviously, in terms of the way that he's funny, is very original, and it's very just off the cuff. We did a month opening for every single person at the bitter end in New York, and I would sit in the audience until it was time for me to come up with a notepad, and anything he said that was a little different, I would write it down. From that month, I think he got 5 years of material. And the other thing that I really, really loved about him was that he wasn't so full of testosterone. He wasn't so edgy like most of the guys, or it's mostly guys. There weren't very many female comedians back then that were really working a lot, at least not that I saw. And when you get a bunch of these guys in a room, or sitting around a table at a deli, they just all be flying with the insults back and forth and back and forth. And he never, ever joined into that. He always found a way to steer it away from that testosterone-filled competition that so many people used to do at that time. And I loved that about him. I really felt, oh man, this guy is so special just because of that. And he's on Broadway now, and a couple of my friends are in the band. They told me that they were, and I went, oh man, tell Billy I said hi, it's been so long. You know, it's been 40 years or 45 years or whatever. And man, he just wrote me right back. He still remembered shit that happened to us 45 years ago. We had this really nice little exchange of texts, and I just can't say enough great stuff about the guy. He actually, when he was in New York, I was playing at CBGB's a lot, and he got the night wrong. But he actually came to see me at CBGB's. He got the night wrong, but he made the effort to come down. And this was after he moved out to LA and I stayed in New York, so we weren't working together. But when he came over, and I said, oh no, you actually went to CB? And he said, yeah, and I went, and there was a band, and they were throwing live bait into the audience. And then when he was on Saturday Night Live, I was there with Tina, and Billy had this piece about an old jazz musician. It's called Face. And I remember us both being in the Howard Johnson's hotel opening up for Neil Sedaka. He said, bring your sax. And so I did. And it was kind of, he did this old jazz musician saying these fantastic, beautiful, hysterical, and touching stories. And it really kind of changed him. He wasn't just joke after joke after joke after joke. When he came up with that bit, it sort of changed him. So I felt like I was there at the beginning of that. And yeah, I love the guy. To just write to you and just say, oh man, I miss you, and how you been doing, what's going on, and after all this time, was just fantastic. He's still the person that I always thought that he was. And Peter Gabriel, also a very, very sweet, genuine, kind, helpful. He would do anything he could to, like, include you in what he was doing. So if he was writing a new song, he'd get the band to come in and just sort of see what everybody could kind of contribute a little bit, or just to run it down or keep people involved. He was kind of like a friend. And everybody was different in that band. Jerry Marotta is a lot different than Sid McGuinness, who's a lot different, fast, and me. I'm a lot different than all those guys. And most bands that I've been in, I guess mostly Tina's band, I was just not accepted. And it was really, really very difficult. So I was back there with my little shenanigans, and Kenny Moore especially was her right-hand man. You know, I had been with her for 20 years, and it was just the very, very opposite of the things that I've been talking about. It was the kind of thing that if you were doing well, don't ever tell them that they're doing well, because they'll get a big head and then they'll start asking for more money, or they might give you trouble or whatever. So from the top, it was bad. Like, I was very good friends with Timothy B. Schmidt when, you know, from the Eagles, when I was in Ringo's first tour that I did with him. Because we were both vegans and we were both kind of spiritual people, and so we'd hang out a lot. But besides him, I really never had a good friend in a band, and that always made me feel bad. That's why I would just say being on the road is war, and you just take care of business, because they were all alcoholics. And at that time, of course, that was when I was really working out. I was working out hard back then, so I couldn't stray from the path at all. But yeah, she was tough. She was just tough as nails. She really learned how to run a band from the person that taught her how to run a band. And I just don't feel that good about it, you know? I could say specifics, but I just want to say that there's nothing wrong with being just the boss. Like, that's the way you feel about it. I'm the boss. Everybody's expendable. If anybody does anything I don't like, I'm going to call them down on the carpet in front of everybody, and I'm not going to accept anything less than my idea of perfection. And I was with her for 15 years, so that was a tough gig to leave because, you know, it was Tina Turner. You know what I mean? It's like, but we had this thing where we were supposed to go on the road with Elton, half Elton's band, half Tina's band. I was going to be in the band, and I was very excited to do what they would come up together. I mean, Tina Turner is an absolute genius. You have to learn her language. She doesn't speak musical language. She speaks emotional language. So she'll tell you what you're playing sounds too much like running water, or she'll say it's too green or blue, or, you know, add some red, or, you know, she couldn't say, hey, take the sharp 9 out of there. That sounds bad. As a trained musician, once I learned what her language was, I realized she was always right, and I was going to learn more from her than I would from anybody. And I have. I've learned more from her about music than anybody ever. It was just, you had a price to pay for that. The day before we were going to go on Elton, we were going to go to Chicago, 1999. We're doing, you remember VH1 Divas show?
Yes, I sure do.
So Tina's piano player had died, and Elton was playing piano. So we were doing Proud Mary, and there's a breakdown to some gospel piano. Now, Kenny came up with James Cleveland, so he was the real deal gospel piano. So Elton starts playing, and it's not what Kenny would have played. Elton didn't come up that way, but it sounded good. He's a good piano player. He's a great piano player. But at the Beacon Theater, in front of maybe 300 people, everybody's entourages, Whitney was on the show, Brandy was on the show, Cher was on the show, everybody and their entourages was there. And she just over the mic says to Elton, no, that's not the way you do it. What the hell are you doing over there? That's not the way you do it. That's not the way that's supposed to sound. What are you doing? How am I supposed to sing over that? And Elton got up and said, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Don't you ever speak to me like that. And he stormed off. I mean, and it was something I think that every single person in the band wanted to do at one point or another. And I actually did do it when I first joined the band, because she had this thing where it was like breaking a horse. Everybody had to get broken. So she would do it in front of everybody. She would put you down for something, whether it made sense or not. She would do it and make you feel bad. So if you stayed, then she knew she had you. So I went to leave, and then her manager came up to me and said, look, I'll give you more money. I really think you're good with this band. Stick around. Believe me, she's not like this all the time. And she was. That's the last time I ever saw her. And the tour, obviously, we're looking at this all happen, and everybody's just looking, going, well, I guess I got nothing to do tomorrow. I might just as well go grocery shopping with my wife, because I'm going to have some time off. And, of course, you know, they canceled over, and the day before, the tour never happened, and that was the last time I saw her. And it was strange, because you get used to it, like a bad relationship or an abusive parent or something like that. You just get used to it, and you don't expect much. You don't expect any compliments. And it was the way I was raised anyway, so I guess I fit into it pretty easily. I mean, I know people want to know about that, and I want to say that I have the utmost respect for her as an artist. She invented a whole new style of dance. It was not easy to be one of her dancers, because nobody's used to moving like that. She just invented this whole new style. I mean, she'd get Tony Basil in just to take a look at the end for little blips and blops here and there, or maybe to make it look something didn't look modern enough. But it was her all the way. In 15 years, I never heard her sing one bum note. I never saw her miss a step in those 6-inch heels. She's just an absolute genius. In the studio, I was so excited because she and I had such a good blend vocally that I used to do all the background singing. And the day that happened, where we were all sitting around a mic, and then we'd sing together with her, and when I sang with her, she just went, that's what I want. You know, those kind of things will stay with me forever, because I respect her so much. But it's really tough. And the guys were all huge drinkers. I was the only one in the band that wasn't a drinker and a drug thing. So there was nobody to hang out with. So what happens is, when you're on a tour like that, like a big tour, where you have a private plane, and then you go out, you do the thing, you know, you get out of your stage clothes in the van as you're racing toward the plane, and then you'll be based out of Detroit for 4 weeks while you go out and in and out and in and out and in and out and in. If you are involved in a concert that's got 50,000 people and it's Tina Turner, the crowd is so revved up because she's got so much power that she can do that to 50,000 people. I can't do that. So you'd be back in your hotel room at midnight, and you've got all this adrenaline from all this energy from all these people that they're giving you, that you don't know what to do with yourself. I better stop talking.
I just want to thank you once again for joining us. You mean so much to so many people, and I can't wait till you get to go out on the road and meet everyone over the next 13 weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun. And I can't wait to the gigs that we do together. Those are going to be really, really fun. I know we're going to be a really great pair.
Thanks so much. Yeah, we're going to be a great team. It's going to be a magical time.
I cannot wait to see you in Athens, Ohio. I'm really looking forward to it. I will definitely be there. And hopefully you get some time to come to DJ Barticus' Slowdown Studios and hang out and see the space.
Cool. That's very sweet of you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, thanks so much, Tim.
I know it's going to be a pain in the ass to cut all this together. Cut out my coughing and decide what's usable and what's not.
We'll keep the coughing in for the real fans.
I love you guys. I'll see you soon.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.